Um, Hello there. I'm Sydney Lee. I'm a staff technologist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And that means I primarily do work on our open source projects and technology initiatives, such as this one. I also happen to write and review sassy blog posts about the sad state of the internet, and talk to our lawyers and policy activists sometimes about emerging technologies. Uh, it's a cool job. Yeah. Anyway, so that's not really what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm here to talk about securing the delivery of email, because it's 2018, and I'm going to talk about how TLS for SMTP is horribly broken, and I'm going to talk about what we can do about it. It's going to be a pretty long ride. It's been a while, so thank you for joining me today, because you're in it with me now. You can't leave. Cool, so you may have heard of EFF's initiative to encrypt the web. This phrase is plastered everywhere. It's all over our website. It's in our blog posts. We say it all the time. It's like the subheader for all of our other web PKA projects like Let's Encrypt or AssertBot. And I'm going to be kind of nitpicky here. I'm not a huge fan of this phrase. I'm going to nitpick it, because I don't think we should just encrypt the web. We have to encrypt the entire internet. And whenever we use the word web, but then we actually mean, oh, sorry, thanks. Whenever we use the word web, but we actually mean the entire internet, we forget about all of the TCP packets that are used to deliver application layer protocols that are not HTTP. And I'm a strong believer in leaving no TCP packet behind. So I'm going to talk. UDP, well, UDP gets left behind even if you try. So, so I'm going to talk about TLS for email in particular, whose TCP packets have been particularly left behind, and not necessarily overlooked. They've been looked at a lot, but just left behind for several difficult technical, political, and social reasons. Yeah, so you've heard the phrase, email is so broken, let's just stop using it. It's incredibly popular to hate on email, and it's easy to do this because it's really complicated. The ecosystem is decentralized. It's hard to deal with. But I'm a staunch believer in email. Email isn't that bad, and there's no way I'm going to use Slack for all of my communications. So even though the ecosystem has centralized significantly over the past few decades, it's still one of the first federated, truly decentralized internet protocols that is interoperable. Slack hasn't solved inter-organization communication, and it's like a centralized service. Gatekeeping is what centralized services do, and that's why they want to get everyone in the world onto their platform for money. So email is still hugely important, but it's sad, and it kind of makes me sad that it's so difficult to get right. Okay, so let's talk about securing email. Hopefully that was motivated enough. Okay, but what would that even look like? Because when I hear the phrase secure email, I think of a mythical creature. No one has really, it doesn't really seem to exist. It seems to be like this vague, idea people have. But it's hard to define, so let's do that first. Let's set some ground rules and refresh our minds for those of you who may not have the joy of regularly managing an email server. This is pretty much what email delivery looks like, but with a lot more steps. Bob submits mail to his mail server. The mail servers perform some obscure ritual, and the email is magically delivered to the receiving mail server, and that mail is then delivered to my mailbox by my mail server. Okay, with that in mind, the two models of a secure email that currently exist are, first, we should secure each hop individually using TLS. Having only TLS is not great because, as you saw in that diagram, and as you probably know, email goes through several hops. TLS only encrypts a communication over a single hop. So that means all of the mail servers along the way have your email in plain text. If you use a corporate mail provider, which a massive majority of the world does, then your mail provider could be subpoenaed or compromised and put at risk the contents of the details of your life. Using end-to-end encrypted email, like PGP or S/MIME, it can fix that to an extent. In particular, they leak metadata. Subject lines are readable by default in both PGP and S/MIME. Like, I believe they're readable in Proton Mail, which is crazy. And the from and to fields are also readable. And that last one, although there are workarounds around encrypting the subject line, that last one is something that if we wanted to change it, we would have to rewrite SMTP. So using PGP without TLS, gives network eavesdropping dragnets massive amounts of communication metadata. And unless end-to-end encryption becomes the default, this also kind of signals to these network eavesdroppers who exactly is listening or is interested in these technologies. So in an ideal world, we do want both. We want TLS to secure our metadata from passive network attackers, and a PGP to secure our email contents from, say, a Gmail or prying eyes within Gmail's network. So in this talk, we're just going to focus on TLS, PGP, and the entire end-to-end encrypted email ecosystem has its own challenges and problems with regard to adoption and usability. Daniel Kahn Gilmore gave a great talk this morning about AutoCrypt, which is a project to make end-to-end encryption universal, and I highly recommend checking out that project. Okay, back to TLS for email. To be a little bit pedantic, we're going to focus on hop 2 here. It's the most problematic for many reasons, and this will become imminently more clear if you're not familiar with email. The other two, where Bob submits email and email is delivered to my mailbox, are relatively easier since the email user typically has some sort of trusted relationship with the email provider. So you have leverage there. You can just ask your email provider to only support TLS, like, hey, I'm going to send and receive mail over a TLS connection only on these ports. Users have a way to know whether their mail server supports TLS there. And this is not the case for the hop between two mail servers. So this is a start TLS. Proton Mail asks nicely, right? Both mail servers have to discover that the other supports TLS. If EFF responds positively, Proton Mail sends the start TLS verb to initiate a TLS connection. So let's just get start TLS deployed everywhere, right? It's a kangaroo because it's a hopping. Sorry. Anyways, I'm a fan of that animal. Okay, so obviously we do want to push for a start TLS adoption, so mail servers can encrypt more often. Towards the end of 2013 and beginning of 2014, several organizations and researchers started taking a closer look at basic start TLS adoption numbers, and things look pretty bad, right? This graph is from Google's transparency report, which looks at the percentage of outbound emails, and maybe inbound, delivered via Gmail or to Gmail over TLS. Researchers reported similar figures. It looked pretty bad. But today, it looks like 90% of outbound emails from Gmail use TLS, which is great. This is probably a decent measure of how emails are encrypted in the real world, given the unfortunate massive market share that Gmail holds. But obviously, we're not done because this is not a 10-minute presentation. So the TLS ecosystem is broken in two major ways. And they're major enough that if both of these flaws are not fixed together, then TLS for email cannot properly protect against an active adversary. First one, you've probably heard of this one. It's susceptible to trivial downgrade attacks. So the initial negotiation is over plain text, and any network adversary or machine on the route between these two servers can just censor the start TLS advertisement. since it's entirely unencrypted, this kind of tampering is totally game. And because email is email, they automatically and by default just transmit the emails over plaintext. And it happens in the real world. In late 2014, several ISPs across the world were caught explicitly stripping the start_TLS verb, or the start_TLS banner, from SMTP connections. And also, the interesting thing is there's several ways of stripping start_TLS because start_TLS is so brittle, and mail servers in general are extremely brittle. You could modify the command or remove it entirely, or just like overwrite it with garbage. And all of these are guaranteed to trip up clients to fall back to unencrypted connections. The different techniques for stripping start_TLS actually provide a sort of fingerprint for who is doing it or what device manufacturer is doing it.